Excited to be joined now on the Love Chevrolet phone lines by wide receiver coach for South Carolina football, Mike Furrey. Coach, first of all, appreciate you taking your time. No, there's never any downtime when it comes to being a football coach. We certainly appreciate you taking a couple minutes. 100 days until kickoff against Virginia Tech at the end of August as of today. When I tell you that, do you instantly think, wow, that's still really a long way away, or, oh, I've got a lot to get done in the next 100 days. It's going to go by in the blink of an eye?
Well, first of all, I appreciate you guys having me on. But, I saw a graphic this morning that we have 100 days left, and I remember Coach Beamer putting something up in the facility here where there was close to 200 days left, and it felt like yesterday. So it's coming fast, and just got off the road here yesterday from recruiting for the last month, and now we get settled in with our guys here coming back into campus on Monday, and we got a lot of work to get ready to do before we show up in August, September.
Hey, Coach, it's Wes. Appreciate you doing this, man. Good to hear from you. I'm curious, there's been a lot of buzz from people like us about this freshman class you've had coming in. If sort of winter workouts and then spring ball was step one and step two for that group, did you have like maybe an overarching message to them in terms of your expectations for them, kind of this next step going into the summer?
Yeah, I mean, really my message the whole time was how fast can you become a veteran in this program? And that means you better get in, you better get sunk in, you better get your body right, you better get your mind right, you better get caught up, and you better be able to put yourself in a position to compete because I'm not going to look at you as a freshman when you come back here and at the end of May. And you've had 4 months now to be in our system. You've been around our weight program. You've done well in academics and obviously with spring ball. So you have a lot of experience already to get ready for the season. And so my message to them the whole time has really been all of them. How fast can you guys get up to speed to allow you to go play, with a veteran mentality here when you come back in May.
Coach, it's Chris. Thanks again for taking time. Obviously that freshman class has received a lot of attention, deservedly so, and we'll ask a little bit more about them here, I'm sure, in a minute. But you also have, 4 returners coming back who all played for this team last year, have varying levels of experience in college ball. What did you see from those guys in winter workouts and throughout the spring heading into the summer in terms of just their progression and development to where, they're going to be a huge factor on this team as well?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I know there's a lot of hype around these freshmen that are coming in and the 5 that were there in the spring, and obviously Donovan Murph coming here starting on Monday. But, I think the thing that I wanted to look at when these kids come in, when these kids came in December, January was, what's that going to do to the guys that are already here, and how does that push them? And, how do they grow up? How do they continue to develop their game? And I think, outside of the noise of all the freshmen coming in, when you look at a Vendravius Jacobs or a Mazio Bennett and a Jared Brown and a Nick Harbor, you're talking about 4 guys that have absolutely taken their game, maybe not just to the second, the next level, but beyond. I know there's a lot of talk about Nick Harbor and the spring that he had. I'll be the first one to tell you, Nick Harbor looked like a football player this last spring, and that's exciting. Mazio Bennett looks better than what he looked like in the fall. Vendravius Jacobs, again, we know his skill set when he came in from, his previous school, and you look out this spring and he's making probably the second or third most consistent guy, most productive guy in the room, and finished it off with, an almost 100-yard game in the spring game. And then we all know about Jared Brown. I think Jared Brown has the potential to be one of the most dangerous football players, when he has the ball in his hands. And that's kind of been his rap ever since he's been in college. And we saw that against Missouri when he took the 1 or 2 yard screen for 40, 50 yards for a touchdown. And so for all those guys, I think the best thing that's happened to those guys is they've been in our system, but at the same time, you got a lot of good freshmen coming in. These guys are respected, and these freshmen have shown up fearless, wanting to learn, and they've gone out and made a lot of plays this spring. And I think what that does is create a lot of competitiveness in your room, and it's pushed Mayo, it's pushed Nick, it's pushed Jared and Vendravius. And so But the coolest part about all of it, I will tell you, is all 10 of those guys they're all friends. They all respect each other. There's a lot of energy in that room. Brian Rowe, if you go back and watch the majority of our spring, every time Nick made a big play or Mazio made a big play or whoever it was, I mean, B. Rowe and Mazio and Jared Brown are all running around happy for each other, high-fiving each other, and that creates confidence in our room, and that continuity, and so it's helped all of them. But definitely excited about the returners.
And a lot of fans excited about what they're hearing and what you're saying about Nick Harbor. Did you sense a point last season it felt like maybe he got a taste of that success? It felt like the confidence started to go up at some point last year. How much do you feel like Nick maybe took some of that success, but then maybe that little taste has driven him to be like, man, I can be so much more than what I was able to be to this point?
Yeah, and listen, here's the thing about Nick Harbor, and it goes for anybody. Experience will always help you. And expectations without experience, a lot of times will hurt you as a player. And because now you got to live up to some expectations of stuff you've never done before. And I think when you look out past this season, I think it was a growth throughout the entire season. You know, he coming in last fall in the beginning and still unknown and not really how to do things. And him and I have never been around each other until really camp last year. And as you guys know a little bit, I'm all about the details, and I believe that anybody that can become a great route runner and high football IQ and understand the game, you can develop someone tremendously when you have some of those traits. But a lot of those traits come by experience, and Nick's never had that. And I think as the season went on, the more productive he became, the more confident he became, and then I think the more excited he was for the off season, which was the decision not to run track, was the decision to be around football, 100% all the time. And the more and more he was around, the more and more the guys have accepted him. The more and more he was around, the better he became as a player, the more knowledgeable he became as a player. And then now he's starting to watch film because he's done it. He's learning from the film. He knows what he's doing right. He knows what he's doing wrong. And I think it became a time during the spring he started looking at film. And he's like, hold on, time out a second. I could be pretty good. I can use my body. I can outrun people. I can make contested catches because I'm bigger than everybody else. I can compete with anybody. And so I think there was a growth there. But as I tell Nick, I don't believe you ever stop growing until you retire. And it's his job now to continue to do that. And I'll do the same thing with him and push him. But completely happy. He's happy. He's in a great spot right now mentally about his game, and excited to get him back here on campus and watch him continue to grow, not just as a player now, but as a leader too. Because again, when you're 6'6", 250 and you run a 10-100, everybody's going to look up to you to see what you're doing. And but if you're not being productive, then you know how that works. But at the same time, now he's doing his thing. He's got a great attitude, a great mindset. And I'll tell you guys here, I'll tell you something. I don't think nobody really knows this, but when the first day those freshmen showed up in December, we kind of took them out on the field and started walking through some formations. And there was one guy that walked out there and tried to start helping all those kids understand where to line up, how to line up, what the plays were, what the concepts were. And it was Nick Harbor. And that's when I kind of looked over and was just kind of like myself, like, you know what, this kid needs kids like this around, but he also has some leadership qualities in him that he's starting to believe in what he's doing to help other people. And I think it's all that culmination of everything has allowed him to be where he's at today. And listen, there's a lot of work. I'm not saying the kid's going to be an All-American or, an SEC player of the year, but I know he's a daggone stinking good football player. And we're going to push him this fall to, try to become the best he can possibly become and help South Carolina win a lot of football games.
And talking to Gamecock football's wide receiver coach Mike Furrey here on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. We can talk about some of these freshmen now that you alluded to a moment ago, and Wes and Chris have been covering these guys since they were in high school. And look, it's one thing to have a guy, have a star rating that's high and be hyped that way, but there's a lot of belief that several of these guys can come in and make an immediate impact this upcoming season. What do you see out of some of these young guys that have already been on campus that lead you to believe that they can be what they're built to be?
Yeah, I think they're all very they all have different elite traits, and I think that's the thing that allows all of them the potential to make some noise this fall. Rather it's starting, or rather it's playing a lot of games, or rather it's helping us in the return game or on special teams. And so it's going to be fun to watch this fall, the competitiveness of all of them. When you look at a Malik Clark, you have size, you have speed, you have catch radius. He's got high football IQ, and you got a competitiveness in him that I think he's got a chance to become a really good player, and it's up to him to be how fast he wants to become that good. I think when you look at a Jordan Gidron, who came in as almost a 16-year-old young man who is coming into an SEC program, but has the body size and the maturity to come in and compete at a high level. You're talking about a kid that can run with his size, that can make plays down the field. It's going to be fun to watch. When you look at a Brian Rowe, as you guys have seen throughout the spring, he's probably the most explosive, electrifying guy that we have in our football program. He's got a savviness and a skill set that he brings from being a phenomenal basketball player, where he can maneuver in and around people, and he can catch the football really at any different angle, which is exciting. And so, and he's pretty dynamic with the ball in his hands. Kind of reminds you a little bit of Jared Brown a little bit. Even though he's a slender build, it's just how he maneuvers with that ball. You look at Pup Sellers, Jaden Sellers, all the guy did was win a state championship game state championship for his entire high school. And he really did it by himself throughout his entire senior year. So he's probably the most well put together football player when you talk about all the qualities that it takes to be a football player. The kid's tough as all get out. He's smart. He's really dynamic with the ball in his hands. He can play running back, played a quarterback in high school, so he can be a big-time utility guy. And so he's got a lot of traits in regards to that. Lex Cyrus, we brought him down from Pennsylvania, and here's a guy that was, obviously the number one wideout in the state of Pennsylvania, and it was all because he's a 40-inch vertical guy. He's a 4.3, 4.4 guy. I think he ran 10.5, 10.600 in high school, and he can flat-out fly. So there's some qualities in there that Lex brings, and his return game skills are tremendous. So he'll be competing for that, hopefully here this fall when he gets back and gets settled in. And then Donovan Murph, he hasn't been on campus yet, but Murph will be here in the beginning of May. I'm sorry, at the end of May, beginning of next week. You're talking about a guy that's long, twitchy, high football IQ, tough as all get out, big time catch radius, highly competitive, and he's got some family blood with with South Carolina and Alshon, and he's got a lot of expectations for himself because of his some things that his family has done in our program, and so it'll be fun. It'll be fun to get him back here. It'd be fun to get him on campus here in a little bit. And so, did I miss anybody? I know there's a lot of them.
I think
you checked all the boxes there, Coach.
Yeah. To be honest, we're going to have to get you back on at a later time. We do have a break coming up here in about 60 seconds because we have a lot more questions about this wide receiver room. But man, that was some thorough insight on all the freshmen there.
Yeah, it's a pretty good deal with the group, guys.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, we appreciate it, and we might be checking with you again as the season draws closer.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Absolutely. Coach Mike Furrey,
right.
Gamecock football there, overseeing that wide receiver room that we're going to be talking a lot about as the summer rolls along. Again, 100 days till kickoff between the Gamecocks and the Hokies out in Atlanta. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs.